Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us today. In a very happy coincidence turn of events, this week we are going to be talking about nutrition and how to set oneself up for success with fasting. So, with us today, I'm very excited to have our registered dietitian, Chiara Estes. She's our registered dietitian at Regina Caeli Clinic. She specializes in functional nutrition and women's health, and she is brilliant and has a true gift for all things nutrition, all things food, regulating hormones, achieving pregnancy. She's truly so blessed. I'm so glad that she's with us today. Thank you, Chiara, for being here.
Hi,
Um,
happy to be here.
Okay. I'm going to do a couple of disclaimers before we get into it. So, first of all, please do not construe anything on this podcast to be medical advice particular to you. Before entering into any sort of fasting, please consult with your healthcare practitioner who knows you best. The other disclaimer that I would make is just that this summer fasting series that we're doing is not on the Roman Catholic Church calendar. It's completely voluntary, so you can make of it what you will. Um, for the most part, today we're going to be talking about the fasting that is prescribed by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, which is fasting only on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday, and involves eating one meal and then two smaller meals that do not together equate to one full meal. So, I think it is worth touching though, because it's been in kind of in the hot seat. It's gotten a lot of attention in recent years, fasting. It's all of a sudden kind of on the map. So I don't know, Chiara, if you would mind just talking to us about the health benefits of fasting.
Mhm. Yeah, and like most nutrition things, while they're not the magic health solution for everyone, there is always like a grain of truth or a grain of something really good, and even like the trendy things that seem to pop up. And so, as far as fasting goes, there are some metabolic benefits towards fasting and gut health benefits towards fasting, which will ultimately further help metabolic benefits. And so, while we know that there are these benefits, it's also important to consider that these benefits are seen when somebody is already eating well and eating enough. So, getting good nutrition is it, in a picture where somebody is getting good nutrition at a baseline. And so that's the overarching caveat with fasting being helpful in any instance. If somebody who is chronically underfed tries to do any fasting and is expecting health benefits, you the short-term stressor won't really show the same health benefits. It'll just be another stressor. So with
Makes
that
total sense.
caveat in mind, but if you're somebody who generally eats well, is eating enough, and your nutrition at baseline is not a stressor, it can do great things for your insulin sensitivity. It makes the period of time where your body is not eating, your insulin levels are able to come down, and then your cells become more sensitive to them. So that can be helpful for blood sugar regulation purposes. It can also decrease some inflammatory cytokines and some markers of inflammation, which can help for overall health, feeling well, all those good things that we want. Especially in a world where it's really hard to combat inflammation, any little thing that we can do can be helpful. And then it also has some other gut health benefits. The periods of fasting have a way of encouraging more growth and proliferating more growth of more variety of good bacteria in our gut, as particularly some that are good strains for metabolic health. So that will further
Interesting.
help things like insulin sensitivity. Akkermansia muciniphila specifically is one that will be increased during times of fasting. And then when our gut does get rest, that's also very good and natural for our gut to get rest. As much as like food is very abundant for everybody in our country. Um, and so, but our gut isn't meant to eat all day. We're not meant to be grazers all day. There does need to be some period of rest. And sometimes an extended period of rest can be really helpful for our gut to really clean out well. Um, there is there's something in our gut called the migrating motor complex, which is only activated when our gut's empty. And so if our gut's never empty, it never gets the chance to really get that house cleaning wave of getting the nitty
Interesting.
gritty stuff out. Just in the same way that it's hard to get the nitty gritty, like dusting the baseboards and stuff like that done when when everything else in your house is still a mess. When all of the big stuff is out, that's when all like the nitty gritty cleaning can get done, and our gut kind of does something similar, and that can be really beneficial for gut health too.
So interesting. Wow, that's
Mhm.
really cool. Um, well, thank you for sharing that. So So many people who have worked with me either in the clinic or previously on different health journeys can attest to the fact that they've likely heard me say, I want to set you up for success with this. So that's our goal here today is to really kind of set people up with success with fasting. Um, so what would you say are the essentials for setting oneself up for success in fasting?
I would say the biggest one is to make the most of any instance that you're actually eating, right? Because if we are having less instances, right, because it's only going to be one meal, two small snacks. Um, if those are the only instances that you're eating and you want to make sure that you're getting good nutrients, but then you also want to make sure that you're setting yourself up good blood sugar wise and satiety wise, because it's going to be hard either way, but we don't need to make it harder by,
What does satiety mean?
oh, so feeling satisfied with a meal, and
Okay.
making sure the hunger signals aren't crazy or anything like that, or we're not struggling with cravings more than we have to, or any of
Mhm.
those things. And so the first things that come to mind are making sure there's a good balance with our meal. So particularly with the meal, you'd want there to be things that will make sure that you're promoting blood sugar balance. So we'd want to focus on protein a lot. And I
Mhm.
think in this instance, because you're not having three large meals a day, then your biggest meal, I would think 30 to 40 grams of protein is at least for the meal. So for most meals, if you're having a meat source, then it's pretty easily done. If you're not having a meat source, and sometimes having multiple protein sources might be the way to be able to achieve that.
Mhm.
But making sure you're getting enough protein on the meal. And then you would also want fiber containing carbohydrates and then some healthy fats on there too. So having the protein, having the fiber containing carbohydrates, and then having healthy fats all help to slow digestion so that your body is not going through this meal as quickly. It's not causing any blood sugar spikes or crashes, and is keeping you satisfied for longer than if any of those pieces were missing. So that would be the biggest thing with the meal. You would definitely want all of those there. For the two snacks, I think I would suggest having all of those things there for the snacks too. I typically say for these snacks to kind of think of them as mini meals rather than snacks, because then you're more likely to grab all the pieces that you need. So rather
Mhm.
than most people when they have a snack, I think maybe would pair a protein with it,
Mhm.
but tend to not have like protein, fat, and carbohydrate, like fiber containing carbohydrate with just a snack. But I would encourage that because that could make the snacks much more worth it too, and make the
Mhm.
snacks much more satisfying.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Can you give us an example of each of those three types of food? So, an example of a meal that might contain 30 to 40 grams of protein plus a healthy fat, and then also a fiber containing carbohydrate. What are some
Yeah.
examples of those?
Yeah. So if we're talking meals, a meal that I would encourage people to actually make their biggest meal, which this is not typically how everybody eats, but I would encourage your biggest meal to actually be your breakfast meal. If we're talking about making the most of this, making the most of it probably would include making your biggest meal the first meal of your day rather than the biggest meal being the last meal of the day. Because there are metabolic benefits towards kind of swinging your nutrition heavier in the front end of the day rather than the back end of the day. So it has metabolic benefits alone, but then will also benefit you during a fasting journey because your body handles carbohydrates a little bit better in the morning. You're working with higher cortisol levels in the morning. So making sure those things are better balanced in the morning will help you have less cravings later on in the day and feel a bit more satisfied throughout the day too. So I'll use breakfast foods as an example to encourage people to do this. For breakfast, if so, say we wanted to have 30 to 40 grams of protein with breakfast, that would be really hard to do with just one source. Eggs have a lot of protein, but they don't have 30 to 40 grams unless you have like 5 of them. So that could look like a couple eggs and some Greek yogurt, or a couple eggs and some cottage cheese. So usually 2 protein sources, or it could be eggs plus whatever breakfast meats that you like. So that's what it would look like for a breakfast, the protein. So 2 types of proteins is usually what you'll need to get the 30 to 40 grams. And then pairing it with a fiber containing carbohydrate source. And so if most of the really good fiber containing carbohydrate sources are going to be your fruits or your starchy vegetables. So my favorites would be any kind of fruit that you like. So whether it's apples or pears or plums, strawberries, berries, those are going to contain a lot of antioxidants that are helpful too. Where when we're talking about wanting to make the most of the meal, that's going to bring in a lot of stuff too. A personal favorite of mine for breakfasts would be potatoes. I love some potatoes as a carbohydrate source with breakfast. They get a lot of hate for some unknown reason to me because as a dietitian, I love potatoes. White potatoes are equally as good as sweet potatoes. And
Interesting.
so those will also give you some potassium and a lot of fiber. So giving you some electrolytes to have in the morning. And so that's a good one that I like to use as a fiber containing carbohydrate source. And then as far as healthy fats goes, that could look like what you're cooking your meal in. That could look like the couple tablespoons of olive oil that you're using to cook all of this stuff. It could look like having maybe half an avocado alongside it. It could look like throwing in a handful of walnuts in your yogurt if that's the other protein source that you're using, or throwing that in your cottage cheese, or just having it alongside. I always say that our meals don't always have to make tons of sense if we want all of these pieces in it. But throwing some nuts or seeds along in there too is always probably the easiest way to get some healthy fats and some added fiber and antioxidants too, if that's the one piece that's missing in your meal.
Awesome. Okay, great. So any other tips to set oneself up for success with fasting?
I would say my other little tip, um, I feel like my tips are never that little, okay?
That's perfect. We love it.
As far as the snacks goes, so we always talk about food like we want all the pieces of food groups to be there, all the macronutrients, the protein, the healthy fats, the fiber containing carbs. But I also encourage to have a variety of food textures and flavors, especially when it comes to these snacks because they're going to be very small. And when they're very small, we want to make them as satisfying as we can. And part of the satisfaction with food is having different experiences with it. So, for what I mean by that would be something salty, something sweet, something crunchy. Like, you don't want to have a whole bowl of mush. That's a lot less satisfying than having something that has some crunch to it and some creaminess to it and some salty and some sweet, like that kind of thing. If you can get a variety of food flavor profiles and texture profiles, that actually does a lot for satisfaction, equally as much as the nutrition does. It's a mental thing, but it does make a pretty big difference.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay. Any other tips?
I think during these fasting periods, sometimes hydration can be forgotten too. So making sure we're hydrating well.
Mhm.
I would probably keep hydration separate from meals to make sure that you're not getting too full on hydration during like your opportunities to eat. But there's
Mhm.
plenty of opportunities to not eat between the meals. So being on top of hydration can be important too. If you're somebody who tends to get lightheaded, kind of need a little bit of extra oomph, I think adding some electrolytes or having like an electrolyte containing beverage might be a smart idea. If you're somebody who's a little bit sensitive to that, if you're not gonna be getting it from your meals as much as you typically do.
Mhm. We have a naturopath that we work closely with who really recommends bone broth for a liquid in between meals to help sustain, especially for if women are not required necessarily to fast if they're breastfeeding or pregnant, but if one feels called to, especially for those women to sustain them between meals, add in the bone broth. Um,
That'll get you good protein too, in a way that's not gross.
yeah,
I mean, maybe some
yeah.
people don't think bone broth is the greatest thing to drink, but I like
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I think it's pretty yummy. Um, okay, well, I just want to circle back to on the sort of that the health benefits of fasting. You touched on adequate caloric intake and the fact that the health benefits are not going to be as numerous and might be pretty negligible for somebody who's not getting adequate nutrition on a daily basis. And I just wanted to spill that in too, as far as tips for setting oneself up with fasting, just because if you're not getting adequate caloric intake, you might not have as much success with fasting because your body is going to feel even more like it's starving. So, do you mind just touching on what caloric requirements look like for the average person, the average adult?
The average adult, I would say, I mean, these all depends on lots of factors. So age and your activity and a whole number of things. So just like almost everything in nutrition, there's never like an easy answer to this, but generally speaking, a good general rule of thumb to go by would be about 25 to 30 calories per kilogram of ideal body weight. So, what your ideal body weight would be. And that obviously looks different for different people, but that's a good general rule of thumb to see. But then also, like, listening to what your body is telling you. Are you somebody who is crashing energy wise at 2 p.m.? Are you
Mhm.
somebody who exercises and doesn't recover well? Are you a woman whose hormones might be a little bit low, or you might have absent cycles? Is your sleep a little disturbed? Are you like struggle with anxiety or brittle hair, nails, like all of those are things that your body might be telling you that you're not getting enough nutrition at baseline, where then you would kind of want to look to see how much you're getting and then if it's something that could be appropriate for you or not.
Interesting. Thank you so much. Okay, any other tips? I think we covered
I think
I think we covered everything.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, I would say one last one is just to be kind to yourself because there's, like Chiara is going over, there's so many different sort of little signs that your body can give you that you're not getting necessarily adequate nutrition. And so it's a road, it's certainly a road to get from inadequate nutrition to adequate nutrition. And that's why you are such a blessing and what you do is so amazing. But I just want to say, as a last tip, just to be kind to yourself because for example, we had my husband Brian on talking about his journey with fasting, which he's done some really intense fasting. And this past Lent, like I wanted to be all in, I wanted to be supporting him and, being right there with him. And it just was not doable for a variety of health reasons at that
Mhm.
time. So, I had our naturopathic doctor who had recommended the bone broth was like, maybe this just isn't your year. Maybe this isn't your year for this. I'm still breastfeeding. Yeah, a bunch of things. And so that voice was the nice permission that I needed. So for anybody who needs a little permission to just be kind to yourself, be
Mhm.
kind to yourself. There will always be other times to improve on fasting. And there's probably some things other than food that you can give up that would help achieve the same spiritual benefits as well. So, hey, anything to add?
And I think jumping off of the being kind to yourself, I think a lot of people, especially with nutrition, can get into a very all or nothing mindset. Like, I'm going to do it all the way or I'm not going to do it at all.
Yeah.
And even if it's like, if there's one day that's just like going terribly, then it's just one day that's going terribly. And it
Yes.
doesn't mean you have to
Mhm.
quit entirely. It could just let
Mhm.
that day be that day. And then the next day is a new day.
That's such good advice. So good. Well, thank you so much for being on, and thanks for bringing your beautiful baby on too. Hi, beautiful one. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see everybody next week. Next week, we'll be doing this scriptural roots of fasting, and we'll have a special guest on for that too. So thank you so much, Chiara.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye.